Where's MD?
Okay.
Where's Mini Packet?
Where? I'm going to put it here on the side.
Phone is on that
That's good.
You people know
Where do I fit?
who
Josh,
you know what?
give me one piece of paper and let me put it gum inside. The plan I had today.
Huh? She?
Yeah. When I was
Okay.
Trust me. They say what today what?
and now I had.
It ain't hard yet, so don't worry. By the time you finish getting hard with it.
Josh, put it in the trash can. And go live, my man. Make it go. Put it in.
People were talking, I think
Your phones, please. It
Put your
can be.
phones on silent, please.
Anyway, you guys are already live. So
Okay.
it's not even.
we ready?
No, not yet.
Ah, you see.
How many?
Everybody get
At 30 seconds, we're going 15 out of 30.
Mama, it's not the second net.
I mean, I can read from people.
Extemporaneous.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Again, we will be assembling tomorrow, January 6th, to begin a process through which the Liberian people will speak to their government in their numbers. And we've gathered here today with a single purpose of reassuring the public that the assembly beginning tomorrow will be peaceful and we will continue to abide by the law. There are members of COP here. We'd like to quickly introduce them. On the far right, I used to be quiz or so, is Ben Toba. Ben Toba is the youth chair of the COP. Next to him is Momo Sambola. Momo Sambola is an executive committee member of the COP. My immediate left here is Menipake Dumoy, who is a founding member of the COP, but now he has not been very active now. The man has decided to come at the forefront and he's a fighter. Oamu Ali. I'll turn over to Henri Costa, Pedro Costa, for a brief statement, and after which we will take few questions and it will be over and get prepared for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mo Ali, our SG. I want to say thanks to all of our other officials you just named. And I want to say a very good afternoon to you, members of the Fourth Estate and our partners in this democratic effort to ensure that our democracy works. The COP has invited you here today to inform you that everything is on course for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a beautiful, democratic display of the people's frustration and their grievances in a very peaceable and non-violent manner, as was done on June 7th. There were efforts by the government, initiated by the Interreligious Council. The government reached out through them, offered to make some concessions on some of the critical demands that the COP made to the government in its petition statement. Up to last evening, the Interreligious Council reached out to us to say that the government was still considering making some concessions, but those concessions have not, as we speak, been made by the government. We had meetinged as a testament of our reasonableness and willingness to compromise where necessary in the interest of the people, that were the government to make concessions to the people agreeable to us, to the Liberian people, the COP would consider calling off the protest. And I'm pretty sure the COP would like to reassure the government that we maintain that position. And the reason for which we are stating this is because we don't want you to think that we are not the reasonable ones, that we are not the ones who are open to making some sort of compromise. It is the government that is not willing to make concessions. The COP reduced from a long list of demands to just 5 critical ones, which we believe are reasonable and can easily be done. Some of them could be done right away. Some of them could be done later, but a solid commitment could be issued by the government to act on those ones that can be done later. Yet the government does not want to deliver. We would like the Liberian people to know that it is the government that is causing us to go on the streets tomorrow, because the government does not want to make any concessions. Having said that, we want to assure all of our people that the Minister of Information, Len Eugene Nagbe, was on the BBC on the day before yesterday.
Yep.
I was on the BBC as well. Len Eugene Nagbe told Focus on Africa that the government of Liberia will provide security for the COP on the 6th of January and on the 7th of January. Let me repeat. I'm sure many of you here have already heard that recording. Len Eugene Nagbe, Minister of Information, has informed the world that the government of Liberia will do its fiduciary responsibility of providing security or protection for its citizens who will be assembling to express or demonstrate in a peaceable manner their grievances against the government. Now, again, since this is the last press conference before tomorrow's showdown, why are we protesting? Why are we forced to express ourselves in the form of a protest? Have we all here in this room, at some point in time, during the course of the day, not expressed dissatisfaction over what's happening to our country? The worsening political and economic conditions in the country? We all have and continue to do so. But the president continues to ignore us. The spiraling inflation, no efforts being made to curb it, how it hurts the poor man, the difficulties in accessing Liberian dollars at the various commercial banks across the country, civil servants working for many months and going without pay, the wasteful spending of the president, moving money from approved line items and spending them as he pleases, the large delegations that go abroad and really bring nothing back, the lack of credibility, the international community, the World Bank, the IMF, the MCC, continually we see these letters coming out complaining about government, bad behavior, misappropriation of funds. These things are really embarrassing. The $25 million, that money was secured, was withdrawn from our reserve account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, supposedly to mop up excess Liberian dollar liquidity. But we all know how that money went down. The report has been completed, but is yet to be published because it is damaging and the president wishes to sweep it under the rug. And we refuse to let that happen. The president's inexplicable overnight wealth acquisition, condominiums going up, a bulletproof mansion going up at his 9th Street, where he had his 9th Street dilapidated home. Presidents, he's buying properties all over the place. We are concerned. We would like to see what the president had and what he now has in terms of his assets. Mr. President, while you may not be required by law to publish your assets, but we, the people, demand that our curiosity, which was provoked by your wealth adventure, we want you to please publish it so we may see what you have. That's all we ask for. Easy things. Very simple things. We're asking for the $16 billion investigation They are only prosecuting people for the 1.9 billion that was unauthorized by the legislature. We want a thorough investigation into how the $16 billion was infused alongside the legacy notes or the old bank notes that were in circulation that were supposedly meant to be withdrawn from circulation before infusing the new bank notes, which caused this economic tailspin with the depreciation of Liberian dollar against the US dollar, all these things. So these are just some of the things that we're demanding answers to. The divisiveness of the president, how he labels us enemies of the state, how members of this organization, Ms. Telia Ure, viciously attacked during a campaign, threatening and issuing statements that as long as he's president, Ure cannot win an election. Abraham Darius Delon threatening that he could not win an election. The frequent attacks on the person of Yeke Koluba and his family, which forced him to take his family out of this country, to take them to live in Ghana against his wishes. These are the conditions that we want addressed in this country. Members of the fourth estate, some of you have been harassed because of your critical posture. Threatening. A few days ago, last Sunday to be exact, Mr. Mo Ali and I, like any ordinary Liberian, we decided to visit a Liberian entertainment establishment, Tropicana Beach. We sat right there in the open. We were served, we ate, we spent an hour and a half, we left. Only for NSA, DEA, and security forces to go and raid the people's establishment, arrest the managers, and throw them in jail, and say they are looking for checks that were supposedly written to us to support the COP. Can we live like this? These are the reasons for which we are assembling tomorrow. And we will demand answers and action before we leave. At this point, I would like to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Costa. And we'll take few questions. Today is the first Sunday, and we wouldn't want to waste your time here too much. So your hands were up first.
My name is Lincoln. I report for Smart FM. Mr. Costa, you just made mentions of Lynn Eugene Nangbe clarified on the BBC that the government of Liberia provides security for you people on the 6th and the 7th. And there have been the issues from you where you guys will be in the streets for numerous days. So I want to know now, government have committed themselves to provide security for you for 2 days. So will you be in the street for numerous days as you quoted first? And two, what will be the protocol for the protest on Monday?
The protocol? There's no special protocol. People come from all over the country. They assemble on Capitol Hill. We make speeches. We dance. We celebrate. We speak to the media. And we stay there. That's it. When the president speaks and they take action, we leave.
Immediate action.
There are certain issues on which immediate action can be taken. There are certain issues such as increased funding for the sexual and gender-based violence unit of the Ministry of Justice. There's been a wave of violent crimes, sexual violent crimes against women and girls in this country. We feel that more funding needs to be provided to that unit so that they can be capacitated to promptly investigate these cases and forward them to the Criminal Code E for speedy prosecution, so as to deter would-be rapists and people who commit domestic sexual-based and gender-based violence against women and girls.
Yeah,
James?
Let me respond to this. Firstly, by law, the government of Liberia is under obligation at all times to provide security for its citizens, and not on particular day. You say, I will provide security for you today, and I will not provide security for you tomorrow.
You don't have that choice.
As we are gathered here, the government is supposed to be providing security. It's not by choice, it's by law. So if we are out there for 10 days, the government is under obligation, constitutional obligation, to provide security for us. So, I mean, whether Eugene has said it on the radio or not, they are under obligation to do so. Thank you.
Dr. James.
Yeah, James.
You talk about you talk about the government agreeing to take to agree to some of your demands, and you say up to press time, the government is yet to, officially say yes. These are some of the cardinal demands that came from the COP that we want to look at, and we have few hours between now and tomorrow, and this is your last press conference, as you said. what will happen? You have hundreds of supporters who may be coming out tomorrow. If we leave from here, the government or the Interreligious Council communicate to you and say, yes, the government has officially agreed and this is it. How are you going to communicate that to your supporters to prevent them from getting in the street? And secondly, we're talking about Eugene. Minister Eugene is the information minister. According to our laws, or according to the law of our country, before you carry on protest, the ministry or the government institution that is responsible to provide security or to authorize security is the Ministry of Justice. Have you been able to communicate this to the Ministry of Justice since the information minister spoke? Some will say he's an information minister, not the justice minister.
James,
Yes, sir.
who is the official spokesman of the government? Whatever action any ministry or agency of government carries out, it is communicated officially by the Minister of Information. Eugene Nagbe's words are official, and he communicated those words on the BBC of all media platforms. So let's leave that. Besides, the other question you asked, suppose the government were to issue a statement right now and say we have agreed to do X, Y, and Z. We're not going to speak in hypotheticals yet. Until that happens, we are proceeding with the protest tomorrow. If the government issues their statement, then when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. But we are behaving as though such a statement might not be issued. We're not planning or waiting or hoping or praying that the government issues a statement to deliver on our demands. What we are doing is going ahead to exercise a constitutional right.
And just
That's what
to
we
add up, the president just today in the service said he's not talking to anyone. In fact, everything is okay in the country. Yeah, Chief.
Obadiah Johnson, Front Page Africa. There have been reports that representatives of the international community have allegedly asked executives of the COP, particularly you, Mr. Heron Costa, and Representative Yeke Koluba, to fine-tune some of your languages, as evidenced by the apology rendered Liberians and the international community by Representative Koluba. Can you speak to that? That's one. The next one has to do, government of Liberia has commenced taking action, perceiving that you are being supported by some Lebanese nationals. What is your reaction? And tell us, who are the financiers of the COP? Since in fact you have been whining and dining at expensive restaurants.
Did you say front page or some tabloid? Where do you work?
Front Page Africa.
Okay. First of all, your last question is gibberish, and I will not dignify it. If I can live in America and go to an American university, I can afford to eat at any restaurant. And it is an affront for you to say that we can eat at nice restaurants. Every Liberian should be able to afford to eat at any restaurant.
In fact, that's one of the reasons why
It
we
is an
coming
insult.
out in the street.
So let me say this to you. And we demand that all Liberians be allowed to eat wherever they want to eat. That is what we are fighting for. Rights and rights of all Liberians. Your first question about apology. Yeke Koluba and all of us are constantly engaged with the international community. They express concerns about that particular comment Yeke Koluba made on oppression. Yeke Koluba regrets the comments, but Yeke Koluba has demonstrated that he's a man of peace, which is why, in the face of all the attacks against him, never once has he reacted in a way that would undermine the peace. In my case, I was never asked to apologize. You must have read the statement. Again, you are a journalist. You asked me that. The American Embassy, the European Union, they said they wanted me to clarify. When somebody asks you to clarify, it means they didn't really understand you well enough. That's why they were asked you to clarify. And I've ever since offered a clarification. Why are you flogging the dead horse? Somebody else, please.
The last question, please.
Last question.
I'm Trogon Flammer and I report for FABI. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The government seems to be, not accepting your quest to get on the street tomorrow. On Monday, we saw roadblocks. We saw police officers telling people to disembark their vehicles and checking everywhere. Comes tomorrow. If the government does that, to prevent your supporters from coming to town, what would you do?
Thank you. I don't know why you're taking us backwards. The Minister of Information spoke on BBC and said the government will provide security on the 6th and the 7th. What are you talking about, my brother? The other issue is, speaking of last Monday, the Independent Human Rights Commission of Liberia, which is funded by the government of Liberia with Liberian tax dollars, issued a statement yesterday in a press conference. Some of you may have covered it.
Yes, sir.
They condemned the actions of the government. They said the COP is within its rights to exercise its constitutional rights to assemble and petition the government. And they said the government going forward should provide security for the COP and for all Liberians desiring to exercise their constitutional rights at all times. The Independent Human Rights Commission has done that. The international community, the United States Embassy issued an alert informing people that there will be a peaceful assembly and that Liberians will be gathering to protest on different issues facing them. That was a little unusual of all of their alerts for protest, that we will be gathering to protest about various issues or different issues that are facing us as Liberians. That means it is a Liberian thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
God bless you all. And we'll go
See
out
you
there
tomorrow.
tomorrow to save the state.